Last week, we talked about how IBBI had come out with two discussion papers to improve the liquidation process and the insolvency process. And we are here with you to discuss those discussion papers and understand which parts of the changes and how will that affect the profession, how will that affect the insolvency code.
Thank you, Ankit. Welcome to 81st episode of AAA Weekly Webinar Series. The deliberations has to be done on the discussion papers. And today our objective is that we would also like to seek suggestions from our audience, from our viewers. And in case, so we are going to make it a little interactive. So whatever the suggestions comes in your mind, please do write and we will discuss that. See, the discussion paper is slightly lengthy. We are trying to cover both the discussion papers in the today's webinar. And it would be really difficult. But then in case you would write the suggestions on the changes, how we are deliberating, and then at the end, we would be discussing while I would be deliberating on these discussions, I would also be saying that some further amendment may be required. So the overall, the scenario is actually very, very welcoming. Discussion paper is very, very welcoming. And it is based on the feedback, market feedback, feedback from the IPEs, feedback from the stakeholders. So I think the discussion paper is a wonderful document that has been prepared, which actually will smoothen the process, will also reduce the anguish of the stakeholders at times, and also will reduce the alleged manipulations by the liquidator. We are very happy that there should not be any scope of any kind of connivance. Because if there is a scope of connivance, and if only 10% of the insolvency professionals or the liquidators are indulging into those gaps, then the anger of the society comes on everyone. So we are very happy that any kind of loopholes are being plugged, and these actually will help those people who are actually doing hard work through the large number of human resources, to the training, and also through a large contracts. Because in our liquidation cases, and every day we come across a scenario where the reserve price is X, and in the e-auction process we are receiving a multiple of 2, multiple of 1.5, multiple of 2.5, multiple of 3. So in fact, we are conducting an auction as one moment. For the last 4 days, that auction is continuing, where the reserve price was 2.50 crore, and the auction is continuing. And the present auction, which is continuing for about 3 days and 3 nights, and the present ongoing bidding on that particular auction process is about 24 crores. From 22.5 crore, it is now continuing. So in most of our sales, this happens. However, the regulations are most welcome. So we will actually start discussing clause by clause. So let me share my screen. So two set of discussion papers. One is the discussion papers on strengthening of the liquidation process. And the second is discussion paper on the rationalization of the regulatory framework for enhancing the effectiveness of insolvency professional entities in insolvency resolution processes. Based on feedback, the difficulties faced by the IPEs, why IPEs were not preferring to take work in the name of the IPEs, those were the issues which were actually given the feedback to IBBI, and this is a wonderful solution that they have come up. Let us first start with the discussion paper on strengthening of the liquidation process, dated 20th of October 2023. And the primary objectives which are mentioned in the discussion paper is to respond the emerging needs. Emerging needs means the difficulties faced, feedback received, improve transparency in the liquidation process. Now, the transparency that has been proposed by IBBI in the auction process, that is superb. We are doing this under 𝒓𝒄𝒕𝒐𝒃𝒆𝒓. We are doing this under 𝒓𝒄𝒕𝒐𝒃. And I'll just take a minute. Ankit, my phone is disturbing. Just a minute. So the to simplify the process of potential bidder, to improve visibility of assets, to promote better monitoring of the process, increased involvement of stakeholders in the valuation process, to further strengthen the regulatory framework. I will have to, Ankit, again, give me a minute. So going ahead, so see, like as the public comments are being invited on the sales related issues, progress reports, simplification of the calculation of the liquidator fee. In fact, already we have received a circular clarification on the liquidator fee, and all the liquidators are doing the recalculations of whatever fees they have calculated. And in case there is anything which is not charged or taken additional, that can be still corrected. So consultation with stakeholders have in fact increased. The powers of the stakeholders have increased further. Compliance certificate has been further elaborated. The the NRRA, the difficulty that we are facing out of a judgment which has come from the NCLT, that the NRRA, the assignment cannot be done because uh, these applications are supposed to be pursued by the liquidator or the RP. So it is not possible. These applications can be filed by the, or it can be, the names cannot be changed. The the applicant cannot be changed. So the applicant cannot be changed in the cases of all PUFE transactions. Then early dissolutions. We'll just very quickly we'll say the sale related issues. The auction process again is provided in Schedule 1 of the liquidation process regulations, and the feedback that actually has been received by the IBBI is that the time that is actually given to the prospective bidder is very small, and in that small time there is a possibility of connivance between the bidders and the liquidator. And since the public at large doesn't come to know within that small time, very nice feedback to IBBI. And the exercise of the discretion of a single person like the liquidator cannot have the full discretion whether to accept or whether to reject a particular auction. Even the Supreme Court has said recently in the last 1 month that the liquidator has got no power to reject a bidding, a successful bidding, if the entire process has been conducted as per the regulations. So the liquidator cannot say that even if you have won, even if you are the highest, I have the option to give yes or no. Though the liquidator doesn't have that option. Now, the proposals are that the Schedule 1, which is the schedule for the entire auction process. Schedule 1 to the liquidation process regulation should be amended so that it should be provided there. Now, what is happening presently, that first of all, there is an expression of interest to be given by the bidders. Then the liquidator will verify the eligibility under section 29 capital A of the IBC for each bidder. And then after that, the liquidator will get the documents and for the due diligence. Sorry, the bidders will get the documents for the due diligence. So that process, now the IBBI is proposing that the bidder will give an undertaking that the bidder is eligible under section 29A of the IBC. And that undertaking will be provided at this stage. Then in case he is found. So what I'm trying to say is that the liquidator is not required to verify the eligibility under section 29A for all the bidders. Now, the bidding is done, and then if the liquidator finds that the highest bidder is not eligible under section 29A, then the liquidator will forfeit the earnest money deposit. So this process itself, now the IBBI further proposes that in this process, the confidentiality of the name of the prospective bidder can be assured. Now, to ensure the confidentiality of the name of the prospective bidder participating in the auction process, manner in which earnest money to be deposited by the prospective bidder shall be notified. Now, in 𝒓𝒄𝒂𝒕𝒊𝒐𝒏, when we do the 𝒓𝒄𝒂𝒕 auction, I see even the banks do not have the information, and as resolution agents, we also don't have the information that who are the bidders. There is an agency, and that agency will receive the earnest money deposits. That agency will receive the earnest money deposits. This undertaking also will be received by that agency. Liquidator will not come to know who is the prospective bidder. The earnest money would be deposited. It will not come in the bank account of the corporate debtor. The liquidator will also not come to know how the money is, where the money is received. So that particular bank account would be with maybe very, because in 𝒓𝒄𝒂𝒕 there are some organizations where these are they are entitled to do this process. So what they do, they actually receive the earnest money deposit, they receive the undertakings, and they conduct the process of auction, and it will not be known to the liquidator that who is the bidder and how many are the bidders and who is at presently H1 or H2. So that particular process is something which is a very healthy process, because nobody knows that who actually has who is the bidder. Now, see, that kind of agencies will be engaged by IBBI, and that will be informed to us by way of a circular. So this IBBI will prescribe an e-auction document where the liquidator will not come to know about the prospective bidder and the earnest money deposits made. So this is what we've been doing in 𝒓𝒄𝒂𝒕 for the last many years. So when the H1 bidder, then within 3 days the liquidator will conduct the eligibility under section 29A, and then the auction process can be concluded. So the liquidator shall place, even after that the liquidator shall place before the stakeholders the kind of result of the auction, the details of the highest bidder, due diligence conducted by him on its eligibility, and the result of such due diligence. The liquidator on its own would not be able to say, no, you are not eligible under section 29A. That has to come from the stakeholders consultation committee after consultation. So in case the highest bidder who is above the reserve price is not acceptable for any reason to the liquidator, the consultation with the stakeholders shall be mandatory. Now the bidder is highest, bidder is over and above the reserve price, and the bidder, it is supposed to be rejected. And that rejection cannot happen unless the consultation with the SEC is done. So these amendments are being made in Schedule 1, and this is the various clauses of schedule are being changed. And now what is being in very simple manner, it is being proposed that that there is a proposal that there will be a common platform where all the assets of that particular corporate debtor would be listed. So that particular common platform would be accessible by the various market players, listed market bidders. So they can, obviously, even before even the auction is open, everyone can see that platform, that what are the assets available for a company under liquidation, even if the auction date is not yet decided, even if the reserve price is not yet decided. So these are the kind of efforts the IBBI is trying to do regarding the sale process, and to bring transparency in the sale process, and to bridge any gap which actually open the possibility of a connivance. All these things are being done in the process. And also, the prospective bidder will actually get more time to facilitate inspection and due diligence of the asset. So then this will become mandatory, that in the auction notice also it is mentioned that the eligibility under Section 29A, the bidder is responsible in case his undertaking is seen as false, then his earnest money deposit will be forfeited. So then within 3 days, they conduct the due diligence, and then after the auction highest bidder, the consultation committee meeting will be done, and then the highest bidder, in case it has to be rejected, then the consultation committee will decide whether this highest bidder has to be rejected or it has to be accepted. And in case the rejection of the highest bid, he shall intimate the reasons of rejection of the highest bidder, and they mention in the same next progress report if the bidder is found ineligible. So this is slightly so similarly in the Schedule 1, the successful buyer in a private sale shall be confirmed after consultation with the consultation committee under Regulation 31. Consultation committee is made under Regulation 31A. Now the private treaty is also supposed to be approved by the stakeholders. The liquidator has got no power to continue with the private treaty, even if the other part of the regulations are fully complied with. So this is the sale process. Now the second amendment which is proposed is that presently the provisions are saying that in the very first auction, if it fails, the liquidator has the power to reduce the reserve price by 25% as against the last auction. And for subsequent auctions, the liquidator can reduce only by 10%. The feedback which has gone to the IBBI is that in most of the cases, the liquidator just reduced the price by 25%, and it actually gives benefit to the bidders. So therefore, this reduction in the price, it cannot be more than 10% after these regulations are notified. And there is no 25% reduction which is proposed. So this is the second part on the sale of the assets. Now the third part regarding the sale of the asset is the monitoring private sale. So that's what is I said that the private treaty, presently it is provided in Regulation 33, Sub-Regulation 2. Now what it says that if the liquidator may sell the assets in a private sale manner specified in Schedule 1 if the asset is perishable, the asset is likely to deteriorate in value significantly if not sold independently, the prior permission of the adjudicating authority has been obtained for such sale, or the asset is sold at a price higher than the reserve price of a field auction. So in all these four conditions, there is a word or. So that means that the adjudicating authority's permission is not required. The liquidator can take an independent decision, and even Regulation 31 capital A, which which defines the powers of the stakeholders, this part is not covered in that also. So the liquidators who are doing private sales, however, the stakeholders were not happy about it. So this is where the regulations are now saying that the feedback that is received, the transparency is not maintained. Sometimes the stakeholders have not consulted the liquidator. The asset selling is at a higher price. So these are the discussions. And then finally, the proposal is that now the private sale can happen only after prior consultation with the SEC under Regulation 31A. So that is what is the amendment. The private sale has to be sorry. Now the next part, which is again regarding basically the access of the public at large to the assets. Otherwise, the liquidators are just working in a very close group. Now, how the liquidator will do the publicity, how the liquidator will advertise. So that matter is presently not really been seen by the stakeholders. Therefore, the IBBI has come into this kind of proposal, and the proposal has what is the intent behind this proposal? The assets are publicly listed only at the time of auction. This is the feedback. The practice significantly limits the amount of time for which the information about the asset is available to potential bidder before an auction begins, potentially reducing both the number of interested parties and the final bid price. The lack of a centralized listing platform for all assets undergoing the liquidation process, lack of availability of the information on any platform reduces the participation and creates confusion among potential bidders. Lack of freely available information affects the transparency of the bidding process and potentially discourage the participation. And now the proposal is that the liquidator should list all the assets of the corporate debtor as per the asset memorandum which has been submitted to NCLT on a listing platform in a manner to be notified. The IBBI will notify a listing platform, and the liquidator will list all the assets of the corporate debtor immediately after the asset memorandum is filed. That would be available to public at large. Public will wait for the auction process, and then in that process, it will improve the visibility of the asset, reduce the information asymmetry, and simplify the process for the potential bidders. So therefore, the amendment has been done that all the assets of the corporate debtor would be listed as per the asset memorandum, and all the information regarding the asset, like the attachment status, lien, geographic coordinates, envisaged mode of sale, and likely date of auction, that would be listed on that particular platform. I'm not sure when the finally will come. I'm not sure whether the liquidation value has to be listed or not. But so far, it is mentioned that whether there is an attachment or not, or lien, geographic coordinates, envisaged mode of sale, and likely date of auction, that is what is required to be given. So the liquidator now, the progress reports. See, the Regulation 15 says that the liquidator will file progress reports to adjudicating authority and the board within 15 days after the end of every quarter. The progress report indicates regarding the status of sale, distribution of stakeholder expenses incurred, developments in the litigation. But the feedback that has been received is the stakeholders are in fact very important in the liquidation process. So sometimes they don't get any information. So therefore, it is amended. The amended Regulation 15 would say now that the progress reports would be submitted to the board, IBBI, adjudicating authority and consultation committee. That's what is the within 15 days of like that is all other is again same. In case the liquidator is changed, that liquidator will provide a report up to the date of his leaving, and the next report will be filed by the other person. So Ankit, anything that we have to take up now, because already 28 minutes that we've been speaking, and if there is anything that we can take up.
So basically, one of the suggestions that have come in is that the the number of days to do 29A compliance should be increased to 7 working days. 3 days, in the opinion of Santanu ji, is on the lower side.
Right, right.
So I also agree that a 29A compliance is a fairly, time-taking exercise. So that's something that we can actually think about and recommend. And anyways, the process is going on while this 29A compliance is happening. So therefore, it would not, increase the timelines anyway.
No, I also fully agree, because at times, not every liquidator is equipped to verify the eligibility under Section 29A.
He might have to give assignment to
He
somebody else
might
for
have to give
that.
an assignment to another outsider agency.
Yeah.
And in some of the cases, even the stakeholders might say that we would like to have this kind of report from an outside independent agency. So within 3 days, the appointment of agency, or rather the liquidator may even do this before in the first SCC, that the highest bidder would be. So that can be done in a meeting prior to that. Because see, now it is also proposed in the discussion paper that it will be mandatory for the liquidator to hold meetings every month. That is also mandatory. And the report format, the Form A, under which the minutes are supposed to be recorded, that has also been changed significantly, and it is made a kind of objective type, that there are some fixed questions that has to be answered by the liquidator in that minutes or report.
So there's another question which says that this new requirement will also override the perishable goods requirement, or perishable goods will continue to be available for sale
No, the
from the RP.
private
I believe
sale,
that
the private sale has to go to the stakeholders consultation committee.
private sale of perishable commodities.
Every commodity, any kind of private sale.
Perishable commodities is a separate provision, no? I don't
So it
think
is the
that's
same. It is the same within clause A, B, C, D.
it
It is
has
the
to
same.
then go. So if the RP or the liquidator rather does not get permission to sell these perishable goods, then he would monetize and say that he tried to explain to the COC that these are goods are perishable and they will lose value. But then that's something that
And
he can do,
I
right?
believe in case the goods are such a perishable nature that the liquidator can take action and then finally come to the stakeholders for ratification. That is also possible.
Also possible.
The
Okay.
stakeholders will never say that you've done a wrong thing in case it is justified.
Yes.
That can be ratified also.
Can there be a maximum time limit for auction to end, or it will continue till the bidders finally stop bidding?
No, I
That's
think
the question from
in the
Naveen.
bidding process, we always have to say that what is the increment amount per bidding, and then you also have to say that the next bidding, if in 5 minutes there is no next bidding, then the bidding will end. So that is already.
No, I think the question is that if people are bidding, then if people are continuing to be bidding, then should there be an end time? So there, I believe that in the interest of the idea to find, or price discovery, maximum price discovery, if people are actively bidding, then they should continue to be continue. They should be allowed to bid. And also, as Anil sir said, that there would be some time limit, that if there is no bid received, beyond this much time from the other party, then it would stop. That is, of course, important.
Yeah.
Then we have an anonymous attendee uh, giving a suggestion that it is better to have the bidder name to be visible, since they know each other, and there is a possibility of increasing the price through sheer internal rivalry. So our experience has been that the chances of collusion, in case the names are visible, highly increase, and therefore the names not appearing are normally preferred in our office, and that yields a very, very, very good result, at least in our office, where we keep the name of the bidders, especially the top bidders who are continuing to bid, in extreme secrecy.
Yes.
Yeah, we can resume now.
So, see, Ankit, like there is a simplification of calculation of liquidator's fee, and because the regulation 4 provides percentage of the fee on the amount realized and distributed, and presently it is saying the first 6 months and the next 6 months and thereafter. There are 3 columns in that the schedule of fee under regulation 4 sub-regulation 2 clause B. See, now there are feedbacks which has been received by IBBI. Part of these feedbacks are already covered by the clarificatory letter issued by the IBBI or a circular issued by the IBBI. Now, the first feedback is the exclusions in the period makes the process of fee calculation very tedious. Issues concerning with transparency and duplication of work, lack of flexibility in renegotiation of fee with stakeholders consultation committee. So these are the feedback. Now the proposal is that the liquidator's fee specified in the first column will be applicable for the realization made up to the end of 6 months from the end of quarter in which the liquidation has commenced. So now the first 6 months can actually be 6 months 1 day, or it can be even 6 months 29 days. That's the only little relaxation on the liquidator's fee that can be seen from this proposal. However, no period will be allowed to be excluded on account of inability to sell the asset because of any litigation. Renegotiation of fees with the stakeholders consultation committee will be permitted in cases where the fees are unviable because of the majority of assets being under litigation. So what I think, Ankit, that there should be a possibility. See, let me just say that the first 6 months would be counted like this, and then the exclusion period on any account, including the stay on the process by the jury, shall not be permissible. So what I'm trying to say, in such cases, there should be because see, there are cases where the assets are attached by enforcement directorate, and in my case also, for the last 5 years I am struggling to get the assets detached from the authorities, but there is no asset that I have been able to sell. The stakeholders are very, very reluctant in giving the contribution. So in such cases, there should be a provision that the liquidator can resign in case the stakeholders are not accepting the fee or there is no agreement on the fee. Then the liquidator should have the power to resign. So that's something with which I would see, like it is said that the liquidator cannot claim the exclusion. The liquidator can negotiate fee, but in case the fee is not acceptable to the stakeholders, can liquidator resign? This part is not covered, and I think we all should recommend that then in that case the liquidator should be able to resign, and then the stakeholders can actually appoint another one. So that is where I am not sure whether the liquidator has the power. In case any of the viewers can provide some information whether the liquidator has a power to resign when he is not able to renegotiate the fee with the stakeholders. So I think this is again where we would like to give suggestions. And
I think it will be very similar to how the change of an RP works. So even in case of a CRP, like we have seen in the case of one of the cases where I am now the RP, that the erstwhile RP said that I don't want to work on this fee, or I would not be able to work on a reduced fee as required by the COC members, and then they chose to change the RP. So similarly, I believe the liquidator can also make a pleading in the SEC meetings, and the COC can just genuinely change the liquidator.
no, I think like whatever you may say, the liquidator cannot leave the process unless the
liquidator will have, yeah, liquidator will have
unless
to,
the stakeholders
yeah.
appoint another one.
So it's similar to being an RP as well. Even for an
So see, our
RP,
question is like, I have cases where the stakeholders are not taking any decision regarding the replacement of the liquidator also. And then what the liquidator should do? Then he's a bonded laborer. He will continue, because the stakeholders are not interested in giving fee. The stakeholders are also not interested in changing the liquidator. Then how can the liquidator leave, and to whom? Then the only thing that he has is that he will only file an application before NCLT, and NCLT will appoint from this panel. And then when it goes to NCLT, then NCLT also like kind of says that there are orders. I think that's the only way out. The liquidator has to say and to NCLT that I would like to resign. So actually, like now the other part is like the meetings of the SEC at a regular interval, because see, like it has been observed that some of the stakeholders are not getting information. So therefore, the IBBI has made it mandatory that the liquidator be hold meetings of the SEC, and there will not be a gap of more than 30 days in two consecutive meetings. So he can have more meetings, but the gap cannot be more than 30 days in two meetings. So this is the like again amendment which is increasing the load, increasing the workload. So in case we see the entire scenario, one that the work is increased in case we have to have meeting every month, because see, the first of all the notice, and then the minutes, and all the documents. The reports also will go to the stakeholders. For many other things that the stakeholders meeting would be required. So the work has increased, and the liquidators will not be able to go for the this exclusion. The exclusion is something which is totally eliminated from the processes. So that's the exclusion is almost the thing of a gone. So then is the preliminary report. The preliminary report is provided under Regulation 13 of the liquidation regulation processes, and the preliminary report is something which is the entire biodata of the company, the assets of the company, and that preliminary report, the feedback that has been received is while even finalizing the preliminary report, the liquidator shall seek the suggestions and observations of the stakeholders on a draft preliminary report. And the preliminary report will only be finalized after considering the suggestions and observations of the stakeholders. So this is then only the preliminary report will be submitted, and it will be submitted to the adjudicating authority, to IBBI, and also to the consultation committee. That is the change. So this is also kind of making the stakeholders more and more informed about it. So coming to the liquidation cost, there are some liquidation cost, initially estimated liquidation cost that we provide in the preliminary report, and then final liquidation cost. So there are some rules made that in case the liquidation cost is high, the alert should be given. The feedback which has been received by the IBBI that there is no mandate to inform the SEC if the actual liquidation cost exceeds the estimated cost. Second, it is crucial for the SEC to be informed promptly about any deviations to ensure complete financial transparency. So therefore, the Regulation 31 capital A may be amended to mandate the liquidator to place the reasons for liquidation cost exceeding the estimates of the liquidation. So now there are two scenarios where the liquidation cost and proper explanation would be required. One, it has exceeded the estimated liquidation cost as provided in the preliminary report. Second, if it exceeds 10% of the liquidation value of the company. So these are the two scenarios where this liquidation cost will have to be explained, will have to be explained. So this is where the liquidation cost amendments are there. So in fact, the Regulation 31A, which actually when the liquidator constitute the stakeholders consultation committee, so there, like, this valuation is also an issue. The valuation, presently the valuation is being managed by Regulation 35, and it says that the valuers will be appointed. Now the IBBI has been given a feedback by the stakeholder that the liquidators are undertaking fresh valuation during the liquidation process, and the valuation reports are not being shared with the members of the SEC, which eventually delayed decision-making process. But I'm not sure. We have always, in our cases, we always share the valuation reports with the stakeholders because they have to take a final decision. So now in this case is that in case there is a valuation, this is similar to the CIRP regulations, that in case there is a valuation being done, the liquidator shall facilitate a meeting where the registered valuer shall explain the methodology being adopted to arrive at the valuation to the consultation committee before finalization of valuation report. The liquidator will share the valuation report with the SEC member. This is specifically now provided. So this is specifically now provided. So therefore, the amendment would be there in Regulation 35.
So similar amendment was also proposed in a previous discussion paper in the CRP process, although it is still to come out. So the present process still remains that the final report can only be presented before the COC or the STC. But yes, it is proposed now that the draft valuation report should also be subject to the scrutiny or subject to the discussion with the COC members or SEC members. So that's the same now in both the liquidation and CIP process.
See, now coming to the litigation related proposals, everyone feels that there is too much of litigation in the liquidation, and in fact, Section 33, subsection 5 says that is subject to Section 52. When a liquidation order has been passed, no suit or proceeding shall be instituted by or against the corporate debtor. Then it also has a proviso which says that provided that a suit or other legal proceeding may be instituted by the liquidator on behalf of the corporate debtor with the prior approval of the adjudicating authority. Now, it has been seen that if a liquidator has to recover some money from some debtor, of the corporate debtor, first of all, the liquidator will apply to adjudicating authority and then will get the permission to proceed against that debtor for recovery of the current assets of the corporate debtor. And then there are conflicting provisions, and in Section 35, subsection 1, clause K, it says that to institute or defend any suit, prosecution or other legal proceedings, civil or criminal, in the name of behalf. So that comes in the powers of the liquidator. So this is the power of the liquidator to institute or defend any case. And then 35(1)(n) says to apply to the adjudicating authority for such orders or directions as may be necessary for the liquidation of the corporate debtor, and to report the progress of the liquidation process in a manner as may be specified by the board. So these are all the three sections are related to the litigation. Now, basically excessive litigation and all that is the feedback which has been given. Now, the proposal is that before any litigation is started or is to be defended by the liquidator, there will be in the meeting of the consultation committee, the economic rationale would be provided by the liquidator for instituting a suit or for defending a suit. That would be provided, and accordingly the legal proceedings shall take place. So the amendment is the amendment would be, and submit it on electronic platform of the board from the date to be notified by the board. So this is the scheduled 2 in Regulation 8. The scheduled 2 and Form A has actually been provided. The stakeholders shall extend all assistance. They should maintain particular consultation and submit its electron. So the Form A, which is a record of consultations taken from the stakeholders, that record will also be submitted to the board. And the format of Form A has actually been completely elaborated now in Schedule 2, Form A, because Schedule 1 of the liquidation process regulations pertains to the process of sale. And Schedule 2 is where various forms are placed. So Form A is the first form in Schedule 2 of the liquidation process regulations. And the format has been given in this manner now, where the everything which is in the powers of the stakeholders. Like first of all, the number of days since the last meeting. So this will record that when the last meeting was conducted. The details of agenda of the last meeting, which were not approved by the SEC. Now, then it is the column. Agenda item, para of the minutes of the meeting where the same was discussed, and disagreement where the SEC, yes or no. Like remuneration of the professional, sale under Regulation 32, fee of the liquidator, valuation under Regulation 2 of the regulation, status of litigation, cost-benefit analysis, preliminary report, manner in which the perfect transaction will be handled, actual litigation cost, liquidation cost, actually exceeding 10% or more than the mentioned in the preliminary, running of the company as a going concern, early dissolution, any other agenda. So this is part of the Form A in Schedule 2, which is also kind of minutes of the meeting of the stakeholders consultation committee. Now coming, because see, I have to just quickly go ahead, and we are having less time and we have another discussion paper. So the second thing is that the running of the company as a going concern. So section 35, subsection 1E provides that to carry on the business of the corporate debtor for beneficial liquidation as he considers necessary. So this particular section empowers the liquidator to continue the company as a going concern, and to keep the company as a going concern means the operations also would continue, salaries will be paid, utilities will be consumed, maintenance and other overheads, all this will come and will become part of the liquidation cost. Now, the feedback which has gone to the IBBI that the stakeholders must be informed of the economic benefits of running the company as a going concern, and their advice must be sought on the same. So in cases where the CD is being run as a going concern and the liquidator is undergoing as a going concern, the SEC must be consulted to decide the marketing of the potential bidder. Now, the proposal in this regard is that if the company has to be run as a business as a going concern, the SEC must be consulted to decide whether to keep the CD as a going concern or not. And the SEC can decide not to run the business of the company, that they can decide, and the liquidator shall act as per the advice of the stakeholders. And in case the liquidator is unable to sell the company as a going concern, then he shall provide the reasons to the stakeholders, and the marketing strategy can be changed with the discussions. So therefore, the amendment in the regulation 31A is the regulation which talks about the constitution of SEC and the objective for which the SEC is being constituted. In that, it has also been provided that the liquidator will seek consultation for keeping the company as a going concern, and also for selling it or economic viability, and also for changing the strategy regarding marketing. Now, the final report, Form H, is required when a final report has to be submitted by the liquidator, either on the closure of the liquidation process if the company has been sold as a going concern, second, for the dissolution of the company in case all the process has been done. Now, that normally it is mentioned that in Form H there is a discrepancy shown to the in Form H that this much money has been distributed, but normally there is a mismatch in those figures. So therefore, the Form H of Schedule 2 of the liquidation process regulations has been changed, and these are the specific questions which has been added in the Form H, which is regarding the opening balance of the liquidation commencement date and the auction of the sale, private sale, assignment, NRI. All this is the specific column have been added to avoid any mismatch, and to also very clearly mention how the distribution has been done to the secured creditor, what was the value of the security interest, how much has been distributed. Everything has actually provided in this revised Form H, which is required to be submitted before the closure of the liquidation process or before the dissolution of the company. Now, the NRRA, very recently we have seen a judgment which is saying that we cannot have any other respondent other than the liquidator or the RP. in case of PUFE transactions, because the law doesn't provide that. So it is through a regulation, the IBBI is trying to clarify that even if the avoidance transactions are pending, still the company can be dissolved. That's one thing. And the liquidator may assign assets underlying the proceedings. That is also now it's trying to clarify under this regulation. And most of the things are being done which are there in the code, which is, and regulations are in fact trying to change that. See, maybe we are not sure whether it is legally possible or not, but the code still continues to say that, but the regulation are trying to change that. Now, this regulation 37A regarding not readily realizable asset, the assignment, now they are adding a word even before the adjudication of such proceedings by the adjudicating authority. This is only to circumvent the impact of that judgment on the sale or assignment of NRRA. So now the regulation, the early dissolution of the company, that also will go to the stakeholders. The stakeholders will decide early dissolution of the company. So that is something, of course, not a very difficult thing. The for regulation 14 already provides for it, and it has to go to the stakeholders. Then the present difficulty was that in case of any unclaimed deposits or undistributed proceeds, that the liquidator has to deposit in the liquidation corporate liquidation account, which is maintained by the IBBI, and the money cannot be claimed unless the company is dissolved. So that has been provided, that even when the liquidator deposits that amount before IBBI and the company has not yet been dissolved, and there is a time gap between submission of application to NCLT and approval. So that is something which is now covered, that any claimant who could not get the distribution can claim during that period when the application has been submitted for dissolving the company by the liquidator, but the NCLT has not passed that order. In that period also, those undistributed proceeds can be claimed. So that also has been corrected. It's proposed to be corrected by making an amendment in Regulation 46. So I think that's what was about this liquidation process regulations, Ankit. We have only few minutes. I think with the next part we can take up in the because the next part we can take up in the next episode, because that is also significant, how the IPs are supposed to be rationalized, how the minimum fee are not applicable, what are the number of cases that the IPEs can do, what is the meaning of related party. So that cannot be discussed in this particular time. I think we can take some suggestions, some questions, and then we can take this part, the rationalization of the regulatory framework for enhancing the effectiveness of the insolvency professional entities. That will be taken up in the next episode. That will be episode 82 of AAA Weekly Webinar Series. Ankit, I think Shantanu ji wanted to say something. Should we seek, if you can ask him to speak?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So I was saying it's a good thing that the price cannot be reduced by 25%, which is the proposal, and 10% only. Now, when IBBI is already proposing that in every 30 days, the liquidator has to have a SCC meeting. And if you see an auction cycle as on today, it is also 30 days as per the prescribed timeline. I feel the suggestion should be made that let the SCC decide by 66% vote as to what should be the next reduction, if at all. So if SCC decides not to reduce, let them say that. And if they decide to reduce, let them say by what percent, 5%, 10%, 15%. As long as there is a 66% voting, then that should be allowed. Why should IBBI want to prescribe that like a micromanagement? SEC is the best judge. This is one of my views. This is one thing which I wanted to say. Second thing is, uh, when they are talking about the sharing of all the reports with the stakeholders, they should not then insist that we obtain a mandatory, non-disclosure agreement from all the stakeholders, because that may not be possible, because in stakeholder consultation committee now, even the operational creditors do have a representation, right? So they are there, everybody is present. Now, how to, if it was only the financial creditors with whom it has to be shared, that was a different thing. But now if it has to be shared with everyone, then I don't think everybody is going to give those confidentiality. It will be very difficult for the liquidator to collate all those things, and then they should not be penalized for not collating the this thing, the what you call the confidentiality undertaking. Thirdly, when they are talking about a platform, something which is like what MSTC already has, where the platform receives the EMD and things like that, I would suggest that we recommend to IBBI that they should not monopolize only one platform, because I think we are again heading towards NESL, which is their favorite child. But NESL systems are all not really up to the mark, to be very honest with you. I have tried it. So better they should also rope in MSTC. MSTC already has a exactly what they're trying to say. They take the EMD, they take the listing, they have the exact process, which, and it's a government company again.
See,
So
like
this is something.
see, like Shantanu, we are already dealing with this the
TC.
MSTC.
Yeah.
MSTC. In fact, there are some people who are regular bidder, and they have kept their earnest money deposit
Yes.
with
Yes.
MSTC permanently. So they can
Actually, there is only
anytime.
one problem. There is one problem. I was examining this while doing this auction. Now, there, MSTC has a rule that if, for whatever reason, EMD has to be forfeited, they will keep 50% of that. If you have read that fine print. Now, that is actually going against the IBC regulations. I had held extensive discussion with MSTC, and one was that this thing has to go to them, the EMD, which I think does not permitted, is not permitted in the regulations at present. Now they're going to change it. Very good. Then MSTC can be hired. They have a few things that they will basically deduct 50% of the EMD if at all there is a forfeiture of EMD. Whether that is allowed, that has to be approved. That is why I did not go for MSTC for this jewelry auction, because that was my first precedent. I had met them several times. Thirdly, sir, I absolutely agree with you on the point that the liquidator should be allowed to resign.
Yes.
This is something I absolutely endorse with you, because many a time the SEC is neither approving anything nor they are allowing the liquidator to resign. One of our partners is hopelessly stuck in one case which I am
In fact, in
monitoring.
many cases, some liquidators are stuck up. I think the IBBI should think about their own creation, their own child.
Yes,
That's
yes,
their
that
own
is what they are
family.
not thinking at all.
They should think about their own family. That the liquidators are at times they are working as a bonded laborer. They are not getting any fee, and they are also working because they have they can't resign because they have to go to NCLT, and NCLT may take any other adverse cognizance.
Another thing, sir, the last but not the least from my side, the PUFE transaction, they have been wanting to assign. But what happens is, when you try to assign a PUFE transaction, which is a litigation essentially and not crystallized, uh, so what happens is any external agency is not willing to pay anything upfront. They simply say that we will pay this kind of a share to the SEC, and we will do the expenditure and things like that, for which the SEC is not approving. They want something upfront. So probably the regulation, if they're so keen on dissolution of the corporate debtor earlier, they should mandate that the lead member of the SEC should take up this on behalf of the other SEC and let them sort it out among themselves. Liquidator is off, because in one case, I had put up all this, they actually resolved that the liquidator, and with 98% vote, that liquidator should seek 1 year extension. He should close the PUFE, and then we will think about it, taking assignment. This is the resolution I have, because I was facing a problem with IPA because of this, that why have I not dissolved the company? And I went to the SEC saying, boss, this is the thing. They said, you're a liquidator, you have to close it. And they actually resolved this. So I have gone to the NCLT with this resolution. So this is one thing. And also, if nobody is taking up, then liquidator should be able to treat it as unsold asset, unsold contingent asset, and distribute it. That power should be given to the liquidator, distribute it to the stakeholders. You take it up.
So I think
Make
that's
some.
I think that's okay. So I think there are some suggestions which has Ankit. Can you see other suggestions also?
Okay, thanks, sir.
Yes,
These are my suggestions, and I
Any
thank you.
other
Thank you
I
so
any
much.
think
other suggestion?
we see Vikramji again talking about how there are some cases which are pending with NCLT liquidation cases for a long time, and basically he says that the uh, in such cases monthly meeting of stakeholders will be of no use. So having a mandatory
True.
monthly meeting of SEC without any development is something that there was another view on this, that why should it be on a monthly basis? Maybe it should be on a bi-monthly basis. But I am of
We
the
also have a
opinion,
strong view that 30
yeah,
days is too less. I think it should be 60 days.
yeah, 60 days is still good. And rather, one can say that if there is any matter or any development which is otherwise required by the liquidator to be discussed with the SEC, then the meeting should be kept at an earlier date. That can always be provided for. But then otherwise, as a default period, it can be kept as 60 days.
Even otherwise, also in case there is a case which is pending only because of two litigations and those litigations are not moving at all, what I can do, because see, the next hearing is after 3 months or after 4 months. The
Hmm.
stakeholders also would not be interested in coming to meetings.
Yeah.
So I think the
True.
stakeholders also should have power. What should be they can change these 30 days. That's the only thing that I can say.
Yeah.
The
Maybe they can. Yeah.
stakeholders should have the power that in case of a very, very regular activity, it should be 30 days. And later on, they can change the frequency of the meeting.
Can also be provided. I think one of the better suggestions would be that the SEC members can waive the requirement to have that meeting through a response in writing to the email update email or progress report email or whatever sent by the liquidator to the SEC members. So
This
if
is
the
something which is very important, okay? Because 30 days is like that will just it will not help anything. The stakeholders should decide what is the frequency required.
Right. So apart from that, I believe there is another thing that the various so cases which were filed before commencement of CARP, they continue in civil courts, and other courts continue, the litigations continue. So there again there is a query on, like, rather there is a what is there a moratorium that can be made available to the liquidators for such cases which are going on? Because if we talk about PF related compliances or PF related litigations, those continue with the PF authorities. GST related litigations continue in the GST authorities. Income tax related litigations will also continue. So, moratorium, so the liquidator will be actually fighting multiple battles at multiple forums. So, I don't think there's any escape to that, right? That's how it is.
No, I think mm, mm. So
So, yes, that's about it. Rest, I think we've
we actually
discussed
will
almost
note down
everything.
these suggestions and we'll try to put it on IBBI this thing. So that actually there is a platform that I would suggest everyone should go and provide their feedback. And for the other discussion paper, we would spend more time in the next webinar. That's it for the day, Ankit.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being
Thank
part
you
of our
very much.
webinar. Thank you.